We are live and ready to go. Welcome everyone. Thanks everyone who's joined already. We're gonna have lots of people joining later on. But yeah, thanks so much for being the first ones here. And yeah, welcome. We're gonna have a really good session today with WarnerMedia to find out lots of insights. We're gonna be hearing from graduates from our community who I'm delighted to say have got jobs at WarnerMedia. So we've got Elizabeth and Ruth. Feel free to say hello, guys, to everyone in the audience. Yeah.
Hiya, I'm Elizabeth. Nice to see you all.
Hi, I'm Ruth, and I work in internal comms. And I think, like Elizabeth, this will be coming up to 8 months, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
almost 8 months.
8 months, yeah.
yeah.
Good stint so far. I like it. Lots of time under your belt, and we're going to be getting loads of insights from that experience so far, and tips as well to help you guys in the audience get roles. Hopefully, this round with WarnerMedia, they're going to have graduate schemes coming up, and there's going to be other entry-level roles and other opportunities as well in the future. But first of all, I'm going to give a very quick overview of Diverse and myself, just in case anyone is new. And so essentially, I launched Diverse in March 2020. So really, once the pandemic took off, and we really just wanted to help students, graduates, and young professionals get their first sort of corporate jobs. You know, get those internships, those placements, those graduate schemes, those entry-level roles that you really want. And so we put on sessions like these with employers and guests and careers coaches to give you really the practical tools to help you do that, and get the most out of it. Actually, in the chat, everyone who's here already, why don't you let me know whose first session this is? So if this is your first time in one of our sessions, just put me in the chat. You can chat away there, and then there's a different tab for questions. Yeah, kick that off. Let me know if it's your first time. A lot of people first time. That's cool to see. So yeah, welcome. And so we obviously do these events. We've got lots of resources, and we share job opportunities as well. So I've pinned a link to our website at the top of the chat, where you can find some of our opportunities that are live right now. And that is where we'll be showcasing the WarnerMedia roles when they go live on Monday. But yeah, before we really get into this, guys, what I really just want to say is I absolutely want you to get the most out of this session. So oftentimes you go to these careers events with your university or your school or whatever, and you're on your phone in the background, you've got Netflix on there, and you're sort of just chilling. But I really want this to be different. I want this to be like a big before and after. Before you didn't know maybe a ton about WarnerMedia, you didn't know a ton about how to get perhaps a graduate scheme there, or much about what it's like. And then afterwards, you're going to know about what it's going to be like working there, whether it's the right place for you, and then also how to actually go about doing that. So really want you to be engaged. Please do ask questions, comment, and get the most out of the session. Apologies if you hear some dogs barking in the background. We've got a few dogs in the office today at the same time. So yeah, apologies for that, but hopefully it's not too loud. And yeah, so we're going to have, as I said, job opportunities live. They're going live on Monday, and those are going to be graduate schemes across London. There's going to be a wide range of graduate roles across marketing, film marketing, diversity and inclusion, TV channel management, commercial roles, PR, data, gaming, the lot. There's going to be a huge number of roles available. Some in, Harry Potter on the Harry Potter title, some focused on CNN. Very exciting, guys. But I'll shut up for now for a little bit, and I'll let Ruth and Elizabeth introduce themselves. So Ruth, why don't you go first? Let us know a little bit more about you. Where are you from? What did you study at university? And I want to know your favorite movie or TV show as well.
Cool. So yeah, as Toby mentioned, my name is Ruth, and I graduated last year from the University of Warwick. I studied history, and thank God I finally have my graduation this year, so I'm super excited for that. I think, what was the other question? What my favorite film was?
I want to know where you're from, what you studied, where you went to uni. Start there.
I am actually from London, West London, so I'm currently based in Shepherd's Bush. Kind of been in West London all my life. And I think I've answered the uni question. And my favorite film, I've completely forgotten the name, but it's the one. It's off the back of Valentine's Day. I think it's got oh god, what's her name? So it's basically about, it's a Warner Bros film, and she's an architect. She's in Pitch Perfect as well. Her name escapes me.
Amy?
Ooh, I don't think so. Rebel Wilson, there we go.
Rebel Wilson, got it.
She stars in it, and she's an architect, and essentially, I think she has some sort of accident where she kind of goes into like a fantasy world and she falls in love with someone, and she doesn't realize that all this time her colleague or her co-worker was actually in love with her. And yeah, it's very light-hearted, a very nice show. The name of the film escapes me. I should know it. But yeah, I feel that.
Isn't it romantic? Maybe.
Yes, I think
is that the one?
I think
nice
that's
one.
it.
There you go.
So yeah, I think that's probably my favorite film from Warner.
There we go. Isn't it romantic? We've got some help from the chat there, so thank you, Oisin and Tunrayu. Thanks so much for that. And yeah, welcome Ike and Asia and everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Really, really do appreciate it. It's great to see you all here. And yeah, over to you, Elizabeth. Let me know where are you from, what do you study, which uni did you go to, and favorite film as well. Hopefully you know the name. We'll see. We'll see. This is like a test, really, isn't it?
So hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth, as Toby's mentioned. I work in marketing partnerships for Warner Brothers, and I studied communications and media studies at Loughborough University, graduated last year, and I was actually fortunate enough to have my graduation, which was really nice. And I'm from East London, borderline Essex, so it's a bit of a strange one. And you know what's funny? I don't actually have a favourite film, but I do have a favourite TV show though, and it has to be Scandal for me, honestly. I love the drama. I love Olivia Pope, so yeah, that's my favourite TV show.
Yeah, Elizabeth Pope is really cool. I need to check out Scandal. I've never seen that before.
Oh, you should.
Apparently it bangs. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I'll check that out. Let me know in the chat. What's your favourite movie? Ideally, let me know some WarnerMedia movies potentially, or could be any movie. Let me know in the chat what your favourite one is. We've got Batman there from the bench. Yeah, there we go. Harry Potter, Dark Knight. We were just chatting about Dark Knight. Very love that movie. I watched Dune the other day. I think that's the best movie I've seen in a long time. I'm a bit of a psycho geese. I thought that was incredible.
It's really good.
I love that. Wow, like it was. I'm gonna get sidetracked now. King Richard as well. You know, you got to love Will Smith. So yeah, some great WarnerMedia titles, and we're having a bit of fun here, guys. But it's really important to The Departed. Oh, I love that movie. That's a great one. This is going to be really relevant. You know, once you're in the interview, you need to know these things. You want to know. You might get asked about your favorite show, your favorite movie. You know, if you want a job in TV, film, media, they're gonna be interested to see what you think about this kind of thing, and get to know a little bit about your personality as well. Inception. We've got some great movies here. All right, let's kick things off then. So, Ruth, why don't you start by perhaps giving us, bearing in mind your role, perhaps giving us a little bit of an overview about WarnerMedia, just for anyone who is brand new to learning about WarnerMedia, and then tell me a bit more about your role and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Sure. So I think the best way of kind of defining or kind of outlining what WarnerMedia is, it's essentially a really powerful kind of portfolio of like iconic entertainment and news and sports brands. So I think there are lots of kind of household names that you guys may know of, such as HBO Max and DC, CNN and Warner Bros. And they all kind of come under the kind of brand WarnerMedia. And their kind of main aim is just to bring people together through storytelling, kind of, you know, driving culture and actually creating meaningful connection, whether that's through journalists or through films and storytellers. And I think my role is essentially kind of getting people internally excited about working for the company. And the kind of easiest way for me to understand my role is dividing up into editorial, and then events. So editorial is essentially coming up with ways to write about key successes, initiatives that are going on internally and externally as well, and making colleagues aware of them. It could look like going to Park Row. So that's the recently opened DC-inspired restaurant, and my colleague came up with a whole kind of storyboard to give to the videographer to produce a kind of video sneak peek tour for colleagues, showing what it looks like behind. It can look like, I led on content shaping culture and kind of profiling certain content pieces that Warner produces that kind of amplify the voice of diverse groups. And so that's like a reoccurring thing that I did last year. And then events wise, that's everything from activation. So with the Batman coming out tomorrow, we anticipated that we'd be doing the Batman cocktail pop-ups this week, but because of the tube strikes, we postponed them. And that's like a whole production. We've got like a step and repeat, and we've got photo booth, just making it really engaging. We also did the outdoor summer screening at Westminster Abbey last year, where we screened the Suicide Squad. So it's essentially just getting people excited and really kind of profiling, the amazing things about WarnerMedia. And I think I'm quite privileged in that my role spans, or it gets me to kind of interact with different departments. So I get to find out what CNN are doing, and I get to find out what the kids channels are doing, and it's essentially bringing that all together for colleagues to know what's happening across the business, so that they're all engaged and they're all up to date with what's happening.
Awesome. So you're really having a big impact on the culture of the organization, right? Which is so incredibly important, because people are obviously what makes your business tick. So your people need to be engaged, need to know about the films, the shows that you're launching, and all that kind of thing. So in employee comms engagement, you've got some examples there, hosting screenings so you can actually watch the movie, I guess, before everyone else, right? Which is quite nice. And to have these kind of events that you mentioned as well, that's really, really cool. And there's an element as well that you mentioned of kind of the internal journalism, right? Like finding stories within the business that are really compelling.
Yeah, exactly that. I think the nice part as well is that I get to interact with colleagues from across international as well, and just finding out what they're doing in China, for example. Currently in the process of producing a story because a city in Japan has been called the official sister city of Gotham City, and kind of figuring out what does that actually mean. And I think it's always quite cool to dive into the successes of the company. So yeah.
Awesome, really exciting. And I guess that's the type of role for anyone who's interested in working with lots of different teams, right? And getting exposure across the business. And, I think in some ways, if it will help you really, really figure out maybe the direction you want to go, right? Because you get a little bit of everything, you're across all the teams, and that must be really beneficial, I guess.
Definitely. I think, again, like I get to see what I do like from other teams, what I don't like. And I think you're kind of like in the middle, and you're, just aware of everything. It's a bit nosy, I feel like sometimes. You kind of know everything, but it's pretty cool. It's a really lovely position to be in.
Yeah, no, it sounds brilliant, and we'll dig into all of this in a moment. And thanks everyone who's just joining. I can see lots of new people joining. Hi George, thanks for dropping in. Let us know. So do be active in the chat. Let us know how you're getting on, what you're feeling in terms of the session, and drop your questions in the questions tab just to the right of the chat, and we're going to get to all of those at the end. Elizabeth, over to you then. So tell me a little bit more about your role. And you're in an area where a lot of people want to work, which is marketing. So tell us what it's like.
So I work in marketing partnerships on the theatrical side of things. So we basically work with a variety of different brands to help promote the films that we release. And this can look as like so many different things. This can take the form of social media campaigns, competitions, out of home activation, so like billboards and posters. We could have like custom made products, on pack artwork. We could do so much. Honestly, the possibilities are endless. It honestly depends on the partner that we're working with at the time and the film that we're working on at the time. And it's a very sort of interesting role because me and Toby were actually speaking about this earlier. You're having to balance the sort of ideas and the ambitions of the brands that we work with alongside our own internal like guidelines and our strategies for each film and the marketing of each film. So my role often involves sort of being that go-to person, that connector for all different teams within the business, from publicity to marketing, and with the external brands as well. And for example, with the Batman, we've done so much work for it. I think since I've started, this has definitely been the biggest campaign that we've worked on. And we've worked with the likes of Nissan, Oreo, Papa John's, and Cafe Nero. I don't know if anyone's seen any of our work, but yeah, there's been a lot of exciting things that have come out of that. And it's been great to work on such a big campaign like that, but it's also been very challenging just because there is so much going on a lot of the time, and there's so much to juggle, but at the same time it's been so rewarding just to see the products of our hard work. Even online, sometimes I'll be scrolling through Instagram and I'll see like sponsored ads, and it's things that we've worked on, and it's just really exciting. It feels really rewarding to be able to see that. So if I had to sort of summarize my role, I'd say the main sort of skills and attributes that I use on a day-to-day basis is definitely that communication and being that communicator between our internal departments and parties and our external brands as well.
Absolutely. I'm just going to share my screen just very quickly, just to add the sort of visual component here. So you mentioned Oreo as one of those partners that you've worked with for the launch of Batman, right? So this is something you've worked on then specifically, right? One of your campaigns?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
yeah.
If you actually look at the Oreo cookie, you should be able to see like Batman's face that they've etched in.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Wow.
Which is really cool.
Awesome. And talk us through the concept behind this then. So what are you trying to do when you work with a partner like this? What is the sort of aim? Like, how does this help you and your content?
So with marketing partnerships, we're sort of in a unique position where we can promote and advertise to audiences beyond sort of our core fan base. So for example, with DC, I think DC has a very loyal fan base, and it's very recognizable, such a strong brand. However, with this title in particular, it's so big and so iconic. We wanted to take it a step above before what we've done usually. So I think for this partnership in particular, we're very keen to sort of broaden our audience. And we thought that this is quite a fun way to do so, especially because you wouldn't typically associate Oreos with the Batman. But I think what we've done, not only with the custom made products, but especially with our social activity, have shown how the two can coexist and work really well together. Because Oreo as a brand have a very playful tone of voice. So there's certain things that on our social channels or through our marketing campaign we may not be able to say or may not be able to play around with, but the brands can do that on our behalf. And it's a good way of capturing attention and just driving audiences towards watching the films.
Yeah, no, I get that. So it's a little bit different from, people who are sort of grabbing their Oreos. It's kind of a bit more of a light-hearted brand. And they might have not seen a lot of your advertisements for the Batman elsewhere amongst that sort of core DC hardcore audience. It's a little bit outside of that. So it's giving you the opportunity to maybe reach a few different people to essentially promote the movie. So you're working with the likes of Nissan or Oreo to help you reach even more customers, right? And in terms of that, what we just saw there on the screen, to get involved in that as a graduate, that to me sounds very, very cool. How much do you get to, I guess, get involved in the decision making of what goes into that and sort of share ideas? Or is it more just sort of helping facilitate the process and, the being between the two partners? Because when Elizabeth says partnership marketing, guys, she means she's working between Oreo and WarnerMedia to help get something live together, which can be a big challenge, right? Because you've got different businesses, you've got different aims, and so you have to manage the two. So yeah, how much do you get involved in actually what we just saw there then, Elizabeth?
So honestly, it's literally a bit of both of what you mentioned. So particularly with Oreo, I've been lucky enough to be very involved with sort of facilitating the artwork and just making sure everything's been creatively approved. I've been very hands-on with that. So I actually am in direct contact with the brand almost on a daily basis at this point in time, just to sort of, they'll be sending over their creative and their ideas, and then we'll often input our opinions and make sure that it's aligned with our overall marketing strategy and our marketing creative. And to actually bring a campaign like that to life, we'd have to provide them with all the creative assets that they may need, any fonts, any title treatment, and those kind of things is usually left down to me. So I would supply our brands with all the creative things that they may need. I'm often sort of the first point of call in terms of just flagging anything that might need to be amended, or just flagging guidelines from our side, because after a while you are able to anticipate what feedback will be and how people view certain things. So in order to help manage expectations and also manage both sides of things, I will often be the person to sort of provide that feedback initially, so that the brands are able to make sure that their creative aligns with ours quite well.
Awesome. Yeah, and a lot of skills you're going to be developing there, your negotiation skills, your marketing skills. So really, really exciting. How about you then, Ruth? Is there anything that stands out as being your sort of favorite experience so far, the best thing you've got involved in so far? I'd love to hear about that.
Ooh, I think it's hard to choose one. I would probably go for content shaping culture, invisible stories, and I smile because I worked really hard on that, and that's right at the start of the internship. And I remember kind of the process of my manager asking me to think of questions, and I thought, oh my gosh, like what do I ask the director of a show? And kind of seeing that, produced, and he's answering my questions, and I just kind of think, wow, like it does give you a lot of pride in your work to kind of see, someone actually answer your questions. It does make the whole job a lot more real. So I think anything where you're kind of involved in producing content like that, directing or kind of asking questions and interviewing people is always quite, I think, a fun part of the job. I think, unfortunately, because of working from home and lockdown, we haven't done much in-person activations and screenings and stuff. But I think if we could do more stuff like that with some of the screenings, seeing that kind of executed from inception is always really cool as well. And the video again that's produced, and seeing colleagues really enjoy the event you put on, it's always very really satisfying. So I think events planning, and then also probably the editorial content side, where you're actually kind of taking ownership and seeing your story come to life.
Absolutely, and to have the opportunity to do that as a grad, I think, is really special. And I'm not just saying this; I genuinely think these are some of the best schemes that you could possibly get onto as a recent grad. A lot of people are going to graduate and do jobs that they don't really like that much, in kind of sectors that aren't so glamorous and interesting and fun. And I felt that when I graduated and I worked at BT Sport, I was keen to work in kind of the world of media as well. And you can really get both. You can get a role where you learn a lot and you get some great experience, but you also have fun and you can talk about what you've done when you go home and chat about it with your friends, and they're really into it as well. And so Ruth, just I guess connected to that, what more can you tell us about the culture and just what to expect in terms of how it feels to be working there? I guess you're the perfect person to answer
that. I think from what I can tell, I think I'll speak about the culture of the actual kind of scheme, and then also the company as a whole. I think in terms of this scheme, I think the main thing that's quite evident is that as a grad, you're given real responsibility, which is always great. I think your managers really do empower you, and there is that kind of aspect of feeling like you can take ownership. So you're not kind of just given small tasks to do, you're invited into kind of their meetings and to see big decisions being made, which is always great. In terms of the actual culture of WarnerMedia, I think on our end, we're really pushing to kind of emphasize that it's one big company. HBO Max are just as much are just as important as CNN, for example, and CNN are just as important as Warner Bros. And I think bring people together through our events is kind of what we try and aim to do, just to kind of keep everyone aware of what's happening. There is a big, I think, from my end, kind of collegiate atmosphere as well, where you're working with different departments, and you're trying to kind of promote the brands that you work on. But yeah, I think very collegiate. You're working across different departments, also internationally as well, which is always great. I know that in other teams, I think like franchise marketing, DC, for example, you've got a team based in London, but they also rely on the US team abroad. And I think it's the same for us as well, where we may produce a piece of content, for example, that goes on the intranet, and we work with the team in the US to kind of support as well. So it's a very collegiate atmosphere. It is, an amazing company to work for, and I think there are so many opportunities available to colleagues, interns, as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Ruth. And just before we move on, we have got one question that's specific for you, and it's kind of related to what you said at the beginning. So just let's get through this, actually. And thanks so much for all the questions. Really do appreciate it. We'll get to as many as we can. But question for Ruth: as someone doing a humanities degree as well, I was wondering how easy or hard it was to get into the role or scheme you have now, and what transferable skills you were able to bring from your degree into your role. It's a great question.
I think for me, I'll speak about previous experience. So I'd previously done an internship with Sky, so I had some kind of awareness of the media industry. I wouldn't say it was well developed, but I had a kind of very basic understanding. And in regards to kind of the transferable skills, I think we sometimes underestimate how much we've actually picked up from our degrees and just doing, activities like volunteering. So I think as a humanities student, you're probably very good at writing. And I think, if you were to apply for my position, that's, I think, a green flag. There's that, kind of assumption that you can write. There's also an understanding that you're probably very good at reading as well, and kind of producing written content, organizational skills as well. I think it's probably about sitting down and, in a way, producing a story about your previous experiences and kind of like what you do in like day-to-day life. So what I mean by that is, as a history student, I may say something like, oh, in my role as a history student, but as a history student, I, regularly consume a lot of written sources, and that requires me to digest information, and just tying that back into the role. I think it is a bit of an exercise to kind of just sit down and think, oh, I organize a lot, and I actually read a lot, and I actually write a lot. And I think if you sit down and just think about the job description, you can often tie those two things together. It may not be evident at first glance, but it may just be, stepping back a bit and just realizing you've probably done a lot more than you realized, but you just haven't noticed. So yeah, I think it wasn't too difficult, but I'm of the understanding that most managers understand that you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to have all the skills you need, the technical skills you need for your particular role. If anything, you're there to learn. And I think demonstrating a willingness to learn, despite not having all the technical skills, is probably the most important.
Brilliant. Really, really good insight. I hope that was helpful, Jordan. Very, very good question. So thanks so much for that. Elizabeth, back over to you. What do you feel about your transition then from being a sort of student, graduate, and now working at WarnerMedia? Is there anything that you kind of wish you knew going in, so that would be, you think, helpful for anyone listening? Anything else that you've sort of learned that would be really valuable if you're just starting this journey?
I think transitioning for me personally felt like quite a bit of a whirlwind, just because finishing uni, graduating, and then stepping into this role, which is, the beginning of my career. I think for a lot of people, it's a lot to take in. And I think especially at the beginning, there's just so much to learn. There's so many people that you're meeting, and you're getting to grips with the day-to-day of your role. It's a lot to take in, and especially because we started working from home initially, so we missed that sort of face-to-face contact and those sorts of introductions with various people, which I think does really help when you're first starting out in a company. However, I think my experience was really positive in the sense that everyone was really supportive and really sort of went the extra mile to make sure that I felt welcomed and that they assisted me just getting up to speed with things and understanding how processes worked and just helping, especially in the areas that I didn't have any experience in. And I think one thing that's really good to remember is that nobody 100% really has it figured out. Because in the beginning, I kind of felt like, oh, everyone else knows what they're doing, and I just literally don't. But the more you get into your role, you realize that everybody's literally just sort of taking each day as it comes and doing their absolute best. And I think, especially in my role, I often find myself in circumstances where I'm having to make sort of snap decisions just based off the information I'm provided with. And sometimes I honestly may not know what to do, or it's a situation I've never found myself in. And because I'm entrusted with a lot of responsibility and my manager really empowers me, I'm able to sort of have that confidence to go forward and to make that decision or to push back on certain things, knowing that I'm supported and that I'm making the best judgment based off what I have. And often enough, just believing in yourself and having that confidence to make that step does pay off. So I'd say it's just very important to just also believe in the skill set that you have. Because when you're applying for a role, usually you look at the requirements and you'd be able to see a reflection of yourself in that job description. And I think remembering that at times has been really beneficial for me because, there's a lot of things that I may not have done before, but I know that I possess those skills to do these tasks. So remembering that even at difficult moments is so, so helpful. And literally just echoing off of what Ruth said earlier, I think it's really important to actually assess yourself and see the skills that you do have through the various experiences you may have undertaken, whether it be professionally or in your spare time or any hobbies that you have, and just making sure you can find ways to align those skills with the skills that are required from the job that you're applying for. I think that is super, super important. And I think people tend to underestimate how important that is. And I think you shouldn't allow your lack of professional experience to necessarily put you back or to hinder you from taking that sort of leap of faith to apply for certain positions, because the skills that you have and the transferable skills you have are so, so important and they can help you so much. And I think what's most important is that you're willing to learn and you're hardworking. And I think if people can see that and they see that you possess the skills to actually carry out a role, you're going to do well and you're likely to succeed. So I think that's one thing that definitely helped me. And also just transitioning from being a student and having that flexibility of time and being able to sort of wake up whenever you like and, just do things in your own time to working full time, I think sometimes can take a while to adjust to. For me, I did a placement year during my university degree. So I think I was a bit more prepared in that sense because I knew what it felt like to sort of work 9 to 5 every single day. But even then, I still sort of struggled to get fully back into the swing of things. But I think if you're naturally an organized person and you're able to understand how you work best and your sort of peak times of working, that will also help you to structure your day better and make sure that you're being productive in the best way possible for you and making sure that you can actually get what you need to get done.
Absolutely, and I think that was really profound, and I hear it so often that people try really hard, obviously, with their degree, they try really hard with their applications, they get the role, and they're like, oh my god, I can't do it, I don't belong here, I'm useless at my job. Like, that is so common. I think I felt like that as well, and you're right, you've got to remind yourself, they chose you for a reason, they believed in you, and you've really got to believe in yourself. Is there anything else that you can both add to that in terms of, I think a lot of people feel just imposter syndrome, not even in relation just to the actual role, but just like carrying themselves in the office or in the video calls, and just sort of being themselves and thinking, oh, do I need to adapt and be different or anything like that? So any thoughts on that at all, Ruth, or any advice for anyone in terms of just sort of carrying yourself and, you know, being comfortable in the office and video calls?
I think going back to the imposter syndrome, I think sometimes what I think I've noticed is I think sometimes, and this is so like this is kind of why it's so important to have good community and good people around you. And I think like I can really kind of say my manager's played a big role in this. I think she's been really helpful in seeing in myself what I can't see in myself, and I think that is such a natural process to go through where as a grad you just can't see your ability in the workplace, which is completely foreign to you. And I think it does take a while. It may not, take 3 months or a week to kind of finally, get where you get to that place where you can actually see your own ability. But I think it is a process to kind of get to that point where you do see what your manager sees in you as well. And I think getting to that point will require you to kind of come out of your comfort zone so that you can actually see your capabilities and your ability. I think if you shy away from those difficult tasks, it's difficult to see how you will perform and to actually surprise yourself as well. And I think over time, you do realize, oh, like, I can actually do this if I actually try and if I ask for support and, that people are there around you to always help you. And in regards to, I think, how you carry yourself around the office, I think, so I can think back to my internship at Sky and how a lot of the undergrads were talking in a different voice, just trying to sound really corporate. And my mentor at the time said to me, everyone noticed it, everyone who worked at Sky noticed it, and they didn't really like it, to be honest. They thought, there's no need to react corporate. I think it's better if you actually act like yourself and you're authentic and you bring something completely different to the table. And oftentimes, if you do try and act corporate, whatever that means, it can kind of show. And I'm not saying, you come into work and you don't, act professionally, but what I am saying is definitely, I think, owning who you are does go a long way in the workplace. And I think, yeah, again, we are working with human beings, we're not working with robots. So, it's I think the best way of putting it is you want to work with someone that you connect with, you want to work with someone who you find interesting. And if I think, everyone kind of fits into the same model, it would make the workplace a bit boring, So definitely be yourself. Everyone brings something different to the table, and it makes working alongside your colleagues a lot more fun as well if everyone's being their authentic self.
Absolutely, and you'll perform better when you do that as well. So I think that's amazing advice, of course. So and do drop your questions. So we've got a lot of questions about the schemes themselves, and Sarah and Annie, who work at WarnerMedia, of course, in the talent team, are being amazing in answering those. Do drop in some questions specifically for Ruth and Elizabeth. Take advantage of the fact that we've got them here, and you can ask them some specific questions. They've obviously been doing the graduate scheme for 8 months, so they know a lot about what it's like working there. If you're already graduated, or maybe you're a student, you might be looking for an internship, still going to be super relevant. It's still going to be sort of very similar advice that they can share with you. So in your question, maybe put Ruth or Elizabeth's name first, and that will help me sort of sort them out towards the end. And yeah, do ask the question that you want the answers to the most. So let's talk a little bit about tips now, advice for, now you've heard a lot of amazing things about what it's like to work there. You've got a good idea of the culture, some of the different roles, and we'll come back to some of these questions if we like. But let's give you some practical tools now that you can take away, so that when those roles are live on Monday on our job board, link is at the top there, wearediverse.io. When the roles are live there on Monday, you want to be able to put your best self forward and put it in a really, really good application, and then perform well throughout the process. And generally, the process is typically your sort of written application. Then there's a higher view video interview, which is there'll be a screen. You'll be given a question and a certain amount of time to give that your answer, and that will be recorded. So that will be a one-way video interview, just sort of you talking to yourself, kind of thing, to the screen. And the likes of Annie and Sarah, wonderful people, will be on the other side of that, reviewing your application, and then you'll move on to another interview or an assessment center as well, depending on the role. So Elizabeth, why don't we start with you then? Initial application, what would be your advice? What did you do well? What would be your tips there?
I would say, honestly, like I said before, it's so important to understand what you're looking for in a role and the skills that you possess. And being able to match that with the jobs that you're applying for will help you so much. Just because when you are preparing for whether it's your video interview or an assessment center or a final round interview, it's easier for you to pinpoint certain skills that they might have highlighted in the job description and explain why you are the best for that role. And I think it's also really important to not just say that, you know, I'm a great person, I'm great for this role, but honestly give examples as to why you are suitable for a particular role. So I know for me, marketing partnerships isn't something I've ever done before. To be honest, I'd never really heard of it until I was applying for this role. But I was able to see so many things in the job description that sounded really interesting and that really aligned with my own skill set. So I was able to draw out examples, whether it be from societies that I've been a part of at university to my hobbies to my professional work experience. I was able to draw out those examples and apply them directly to the skills that they were requiring in the job description. And I think that really, really helped me because not only was I demonstrating to my managers that I'm actually right for this role, but it also helps to instill me with confidence that, you know what, I am very capable of carrying out this job. And I think seeing that confidence also is very encouraging for your managers to sort of have faith in you that, you know what, if I do pick this person, they are going to be right for the role and they're going to have that confidence and carry that throughout their entirety of the grad program. And I know that from speaking to my manager afterwards, he was actually saying that he was very sort of impressed by my ability to have an understanding of the role and see how I aligned with the role itself. And I think I made sure that I literally expressed that at every given opportunity, even in the small questions like, what television shows I'm currently watching. That was a question that was asked to me right at the end of the interview. And even though it wasn't really a formal question, I made sure that I tied that into my own personal attributes and I made sure that was relevant to the role that I was applying for. Because even though it is a bit more of a casual question and my answer was truthful, but at the same time, I just thought it's really, really important to emphasize why I was and showcase why at each and every given stage I was suitable for the role. And I'd also say it's really important to do your research because even though I hadn't really heard about marketing partnerships or I wasn't too sure about what it fully entailed, just having an understanding of, you know, what marketing partnerships looked like, what previous partnerships my team had worked on was really, really helpful because you'd be surprised how many people don't actually do that research and don't really have an understanding of what the role that they're applying for entails. And I think it's always very easy to tell who understands what they're applying for and what they're trying to get themselves in for, compared to someone who has a general understanding but doesn't really know. And I think that way you're able to tailor your answers in preparation for whether it's the written interview or final stage interview or any stage of the process, really. Just having that understanding, again, will also give you confidence in yourself because you know that when you're speaking, you know what you're talking about and you're not just sort of making generalizations, which might not be the most useful.
Absolutely, yeah. I think oftentimes we don't really know what the job role means, but that's totally understandable because if you've not worked in the corporate world before, it's hard to know what marketing partnerships means. If you've never worked across that before, but that's exactly why we want to put on this type of session. And we do also try to connect you up to conversations with people at WarnerMedia, either just from our network. So like Ruth and Elizabeth, they're often kind enough to give up a little bit of time so you can sort of reach out to them and ask them a few questions, or we might be able to put you in touch with someone else as well. But that's really, really important what you said there. Being able to explain the role very simply and making sure you really, really understand it well is vital. And then when you're giving your answers to your questions, really do take advantage of every single question you have. Every single question is an opportunity for you to tell them why you're right for the role. And I think Elizabeth's kind of clearly shown that's what she's really good at, thinking, okay, I've got this question, but how can I use that to my advantage? How can I use any question they give to me to make them think, oh, I really need to take on Ruth or Elizabeth to the next stage? So that's really, really important. And we're going to send over a slide deck as well after this. I'm not sure we'll have time to whiz through that. Maybe we will, but I'll send over a slide deck with some advice that's come specifically from Sarah, who runs the early careers team, on each stage of the application process, on the application and on the higher view especially. And I don't think Ruth did the higher view, right? So, well, another question for you, Elizabeth. Higher view. So I think a lot of people come into those kind of interviews, they're a little bit nervous, you know, they find it a little bit strange talking to themselves. You know, it's a bit of a strange sort of thing to be doing. You're kind of thinking that, and maybe you've not had success doing that in the past. What could someone do now to really change that and have an incredible impression in that higher view and get to the next round? What do you think?
I'd say honestly, like, it's not as bad as it sounds, because I think with interviews like that, you can be quite anxious as to what you should expect and anticipate, especially because you do have like a set amount of time to answer the given question in. But what I'd say is just to prepare as much as you possibly can. I mean, that's what I did, and I think that really helped me just to sort of settle my nerves. I literally prepared for this as if it was like my final interview, just because I wanted to sort of go in feeling as confident as I possibly could. So what I did was I actually sort of went through a whole bunch of like potential topics that could arise. So whether it be like competency-based questions or questions specifically related to WarnerMedia and Warner Brothers specifically, or questions related to marketing and marketing partnerships specifically. So I think having those different areas sort of outlined and sort of delving into possible questions that could arise from that really, really helped me. And just again, doing your research, just seeing what's going on with the company, seeing what's going on within, you know, the department you're looking to apply for, as much as you possibly can, because I know that sometimes information like that isn't readily available. But I think one thing that's important to remember as well is that your hiring managers and the hiring teams also understand that as well. So they're not going to expect you to know absolutely everything and to be an expert, but they'll really appreciate your effort. And I think if you do show effort and you're passionate as well, that will definitely show through. And I think, yeah, just being as prepared as you possibly can just to give yourself the best possible chance is really, really helpful. And then doing the actual hire interview yourself wasn't actually that bad. So like Toby mentioned, the screen will kind of come up with the question. In my case, my predecessor actually was the person who was reading out the question. And then I had a bit of time to sort of think about my response. And then once you're ready to record, you sort of hit the record button and then you record your response. And I think you have a set amount of time to record your response. And I can't remember how long it was for my case. But in that time, you do have time to think. But I'm aware that in the moment, sometimes you can be quite nervous and it's hard to sort of gather your thoughts. But I think that's, again, where your preparation comes in. So if you feel prepared and you feel confident enough, I think naturally you will be able to showcase your best with the given questions.
Yeah, I'll just put this section on the screen. So yeah, 3 attempts for each question, 15 minutes for the process, and yeah, you're talking to the camera. But just remember, you know, it's people like Sarah who's on the last event, and Annie as well. You know, people who want to see you succeed. They're the people on the other side. So when I think about that, that makes me feel a lot more confident. And what about you then, Ruth? Let's go over to you and talk about the final round interview. What did you think of that? What did it feel like? And what do you think you did well as well? What was, obviously it worked for you, right? So what do you think you did well there?
So the final round interview actually surprised me because it wasn't as, I think, when I got into it, it wasn't as technical, as daunting as I thought. If anything, it was just a nice opportunity just to get to know my manager, just to chat to her, find out more about the role. I think going into it, something that I kind of used to prepare myself was kind of talking about my previous experience and making it seem like it was a story. So saying, okay, I started off at, Sky when I was 16, working in finance, and I realized, oh, this particular thing. So I realized I'm not great with numbers. And I kind of always knew that, but I still went into it. And I thought, well, I love the company, let me go and try strategy. And I realized, well, as much as I love Sky, I'm not passionate about S-Words, and I'm not passionate about pay TV. And that kind of led me to applying for this role. So I think it's really good to kind of put a narrative or some sort of story as to what's led you to apply to this particular role, because I think it does show that you're quite intentional about, you know, staying and making the most about this particular position. You've really thought about what you've learned in the past, your skill sets, what interests you, you know, kind of motivates you, and that's what's brought you to this particular role. I think asking questions was always great as well. It shows interest, and I think genuine questions, like, you know, what do you do day to day? What will my role look like? What makes a good intern for my particular department and team? Because again, it shows eagerness and a desire to learn. But I always bring it back to, I think, just being authentic, being genuine. If you don't know, you know, something, own up to it and say, yeah, I don't know. I think I remember saying, I just want to learn. I'm really just kind of enthusiastic about learning. I don't really know much about internal comms. I haven't been exposed to it, but I just kind of want to learn. And I think that was kind of quite integral to me getting the role the next day. So definitely showing that you're eager to learn, even if you don't have all the skill sets, because I certainly didn't. And just showing the willingness to kind of, you know, make the most of the year you've got with WarnerMedia.
I think that's brilliant advice, Ruth. Yeah, I really, really love what you said, and absolutely, if you're not sure, you know, be honest about that. I don't know a ton about this employee comms role. I've not done that before, but I'm really eager to learn. I love working across different teams and learning about different departments, and I'm great with people, so I think I'll be really, really good in the role. You know, you can kind of approach it that way. And I mentioned at the very beginning, if you're going to say you're passionate about TV, film, WarnerMedia, be ready to back that up. You know, give some evidence. What have you done in the past to show that? Or, you know, it could just be, you know, your favorite movie, or, you know, mention WarnerMedia titles that resonate with you, or movies that you're excited to be launched. Those are the types of things. If you're really into it, you're going to know those kind of things, and you're going to be wanting to talk about it, and that's going to lead to a really engaging conversation with the interviewer. And don't forget, there's going to be tons of people at WarnerMedia who are fanatical about TV and film, and they're going to want other people who are also interested and passionate about that as well. So we're going to dive into some more questions now. Last chance, so do put, if you've got a question for Ruth or Elizabeth, put their name in at the beginning. We're going to try and get to as many of these as we can. You can vote for the ones that you want to be answered in the last sort of few minutes now. We might go a little bit over it if we can do. But Elizabeth and Ruth, let me know if you've got to shoot at any point. And yeah, we'll get to the last few. So Ruth, any tips for someone looking to get your role? Just any extra tips? And for these questions, Ruth and Elizabeth, let's try and go relatively quick, and I'll ask some follow-up questions if we need a little bit more. So any extra tips, Ruth, on your side?
I think just technical tips with just a lot of writing. I think familiarizing yourself with language like that you'd find from like BuzzFeed or the Daily Mail or the Sun, because a lot of, I think, internal comms is writing and like engaging pieces. You need to use a lot of puns and questions and similes. I think technically, yeah, when it comes to technical skill, when it comes to writing, definitely familiarizing yourself with, you know, light-hearted content that's very informal, because you'll be writing a lot. And then events-wise, I'd probably say organizational skills, being a people's person, knowing how to kind of connect with different people, because you're interacting with loads of different people across departments, whether that's virtually or in person. So I think, you know, getting comfortable with just speaking to people and interacting with people as well. But I think those are my two kind of key pieces of advice I would give someone. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Ruth. And so one here for you, Elizabeth, from Uchechi. I hope that I got that right. Do you feel that you have to have a marketing degree to succeed in your role? That's an interesting one there.
I would say no, just because I don't have a marketing degree. Even though I studied communications and media studies, we literally had like one module where we covered marketing, and even that was like PR and marketing all intertwined into one. So prior to this, I didn't really have any sort of solid academic background in marketing. And there's definitely a lot that I've learned just by being in this role about marketing, and, you know, the importance of like strategy and how that plays a part in my role. So I wouldn't be too concerned about having a degree necessarily in marketing, because I think a lot of the sort of technical things that you need to know, you'll pick up quite quickly on the job.
Brilliant. There's a question here from Devance, where can I find the graduate roles? They'll be live on our job board from Monday. So we are diverse.io. Everyone on this session will be getting an email right after the session with some tips and a slide deck as well with some extra advice. And we will also email you first as soon as the roles go live. And I'm hoping to get to you first before anyone else. So try and give you a little bit of a head start there. And that will be from as I said, Monday. What are the questions here? I think Sarah and Annie have been really helpful in getting to a lot of these already. So we'll see if we've got any more specifically for. Yeah, we've got another one here from Fadike. Any advice for dealing with rejection when applying for internships or graduate roles, especially for one that you really want? Should you keep applying or look elsewhere? So what do you think about that? So Ruth, to go over to you first, and then Elizabeth as well, if you got some time.
I think this is quite tough. I think it's tough knowing when it's time to kind of give up. I think maybe before giving up, I probably take a step back and think, what am I doing wrong in my applications? Is it, that where am I failing? Is it the assessment center? Is it the high view stage? Is it the CV, the cover letter? Kind of taking a step back and thinking, I tend to kind of fall down here. Why is that? And maybe going to a career advisor or someone like Toby even, or your friends, and just asking them for support in that particular area. What else would I say? I think I kind of experienced this with my internships as well. I think, if I'm being honest, it was probably down to not being passionate about the roles that I was actually applying for. And I think that kind of does come through as well. So really assessing your motives as well. And if, you are genuinely passionate, but that can come across if you're not genuinely passionate. But I think if you've come to a point where you've looked at, everything, you've kind of taken stock of what you're doing wrong and it's still not working out, maybe then it could be, a wise and prudent decision to kind of step back and look elsewhere. However, I wouldn't do that unless, I really assessed what I'm doing, implemented a new strategy, and I kind of tried to see if that works instead. I don't know if that helps.
Really, really helpful. And I think what we talk about a lot is really focusing more on the process rather than just the result. So we want to make our applications and our interviews as good as they possibly can be, because the ultimate decision about whether you get the role or not is sometimes out of your hands. It's dependent on how someone else performs. So you really can't just think of your performance in terms of the result. I think that's really, really important. And it's amazing to hear that so many of you are really excited to apply for the graduate roles. If for whatever reason you're not successful, that's not the end of it. You can always apply to different graduate roles next year. They'll also have entry-level roles. We had some entry-level roles recently that closed, but there'll be more entry-level roles now that we're supporting WarnerMedia on those as well, and more internships and placements. So just because you apply once and you're not successful, that's totally fine. That some of the best applicants in the world will always have rejections as well. That's totally normal in this realm. You've just got to keep going if it's something you really want to do. And as Ruth said, get some feedback, reach out to me, reach out to people like WarnerMedia, and get some extra help. There's another question here about I think perhaps Annie maybe has got to this, but in terms of, obviously the scheme is 1 year, and then after that you'll be hoping to stay on afterwards. Any thoughts on that? Any advice on how to get that sorted? Maybe you're both going through that process now, but as I understand it, there's sort of sessions that are put on for you to work with the recruiters and figure out the sort of next steps, right?
Yeah, I think we both got an email about being connected to recruiters and the acquisition team, and I think them supporting us in our journey post WarnerMedia. It's not something I've thought about as of yet, but I think closer to the time is definitely something I'm considering. But I don't know if you know anything more, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'm in a similar position to you. I have had conversations here and there with my manager about, what my future does look like. And he's very, very supportive and very encouraging. But again, it's still something that we're still trying to figure out. And yeah, similar to what Ruth said, we did receive an email about being supported further in our career journey. So I think, it's just seeing what happens next, really.
Absolutely. And, once you get there, network and talk to different teams, you really want to expand your sort of sphere of your network within the business, because you might start in marketing partnerships, but then maybe you want to work in a different part of the marketing team, or maybe you want to move into employee comms. And just because you start in one role, that doesn't mean that's your career now. You can always move into different parts of the business, and it really helps if you know other people who can help refer you or recommend you for roles and that kind of thing. So there's a few other questions here, and in terms of applying for roles, you can apply to as many as you like. You're not restricted at all by your degree background or anything like that. So really, just feel free to apply to. Really, I would recommend apply to lots of roles. If you're interested in more than one role, then go for those. And my other piece of advice actually related to that would be some roles are a lot more popular than others, just to be incredibly honest. And you can probably tell when you look at them which ones are going to be really, really popular. And so have a little bit of a think like that about that. There might be other roles where you read it initially and think, oh, I don't know too much about that area. But if you really just dive into it, maybe that's something that will be right for you. And as I said, always think, if I get one role with WarnerMedia, I might be able to move to a different part of the business anyway. So that might be a great way in. And and who knows? I think often, and I think maybe both of you can speak to this, sometimes you apply for one role and then you talk to the recruiter and they say, actually, you might be better equipped for this role. I don't know if that happened to either of you, but that can happen as well. And obviously, sometimes they know better than you what you might be right for. So we've got rejections. We're just we've gone slightly over, so I might have to just call maybe just one more question. So there's a question here about the merger with Discovery. I don't know if that has is there any impact on that? Like, you get to now work on different things. I think that's actually quite a way away, isn't it, in terms of actually making any difference to your role, isn't it? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So that's not going to have any impact then. I think we've got to all the questions there, really. Those are all the questions, I think, across Annie and Sarah and myself. I think we've addressed all of them. But I'll ask each of you one sort of final question, just anything else that you want to share with the group, anything to either give a bit of inspiration or anything we've not covered. I'll let you choose between something you know about WarnerMedia that you want to share to give a bit of insight, or some advice to really inspire and help someone get a job at Warner as well. So I'll let you pick between those two. Ruth, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think a nice perk about working at WarnerMedia is the Screeners app. So I think every colleague or everyone that kind of starts at the company gets to have access to all of WarnerMedia's content and their films on the app, which I think is always really nice. Like, I remember watching King Richard on the app as well, and it's a really nice, I think, perk and way of kind of connecting with the brand as well. Like, you can go to like the friend's house and like put it on, the laptop or whatever. So yeah, if you're really passionate about content and films and shows, that you've got that to look forward to, the WarnerMedia Screeners app, and being able to watch all the content for free on the app. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, lots of perks in there that I'm very, very jealous of. Elizabeth, for example, has already seen Batman, and so I guess you're not allowed to tell us anything, but how exciting is that, really, to check that out before alongside the critics, I'm guessing, and the actors. Your boy Robert Pattinson, probably. Were you sat next to him?
I wish. But honestly, having experiences like that, honestly, it's really, really great. Just because it's so much fun. It's really exciting just to kind of see the things that you've been working on. And I'd also add, everybody is really, really friendly and very, very sociable, which I think is a good thing. And people aren't like uptight and like super, super corporate. So don't feel like under pressure to kind of be someone that you're not, or to sort of fit into a super corporate sort of standard or image. But just honestly be yourself, and people are very welcoming, very nice, and very supportive. So definitely bear that in mind.
Awesome. Wow. There we go. Great session. I really enjoyed that. I personally learned a lot, and I hope everyone listening really took a lot away from that session. And thanks so much for Ruth and Elizabeth for giving up some time. Very, very busy week, obviously, with Batman going live. It's Friday, right? So very, very soon. So yeah, I'm sure you're very, very busy at the moment. So we'll let you go now. But just to conclude, everyone, so I've put the link to the top of the chat there with our website where we'll have all the roles. I'm going to email you as soon as those are live. Do let me know if you've got any questions. After the session, you're going to get a deck with lots of tips. Do take those on board. Do apply everything that we've talked about here. You absolutely can do it, and I know that because Elizabeth and Ruth have done it, and we've got a huge number. I think we've got a whole team worth of people from our network at WarnerMedia who you can hopefully connect with, but also just goes to show you really, really can do it. No matter your background, no matter what your experience is, you don't really need any, and so you absolutely can do it. But the one caveat is you've got to really listen and take on board all the things that we've just shared. You're going to get access to the recording and those tips as well. And actually, the last thing I'll share is I also did a podcast with Elizabeth where we talked a little bit more about how she got her role. I've just added that into the chat. But yeah, you absolutely can do it, but you've got to go out there and apply all those things that we just talked about it to make it reality. And if you're not, as I say, if you're not successful, do not be disheartened by that. You can absolutely have other opportunities at WarnerMedia, and we're here to help you do that. So thanks very much everyone for joining. I'm going to let you go now. Do, as you leave in the chat, let me know what you thought of that session. I'm going to close it out shortly, so fire that off as quickly as you can. And do reach out to me as well if you've got any advice for me. I'd love some feedback on how we can make these sessions better. And yeah, hopefully see you at the next one. But Elizabeth, thanks so much for joining, and great to hear so much about your role in marketing, and same for you, Ruth. I'm sure you're doing amazing things internally as well. So yeah, thanks both of you for joining.
Thank you for having us.
Cool. All the best for Friday. Enjoy.
Thanks.
Cool. Thanks so much, everyone. I'm going to close out the session now. Just let me know as you leave. Thanks so much for all the thank yous. Really, really do appreciate it. And yeah, see you at the next one. Okay, let's close out there. Bye, everyone.
Bye.